Hi, my name is Ryan Langwish, and this is the first video in a series of me going back through all the old games that I made as a kid and made with my brother over the years, and recording gameplay footage and playthroughs of them so that I can have videos to look back on and remember all of these different projects that we worked on. This is really a series intended for no one else other than myself. I had the realization that all these old games and old files, as technology moves on, are quickly becoming unplayable and at some point really will be unable to run on any computer, any modern computer. And there's kind of that sad realization that those memories and games are kind of lost to time at that point. And so I wanted to go back and just record some videos of me playing, talking over it, and just have that video that I can throw up on YouTube. So at least years from now, I can fall back on the videos to remember these different projects. This being the first video of these that I'm recording, I'm going to give a little bit more upfront context of how my brother and I kind of got into making games. I have up here GameMaker 6, and with some of these really old, I'm trying to start with some of the really old games that I still have files for. And those I've had to jump through some hoops to be able to get to run properly because it was a while ago. And so I actually have parallels running on my Mac with an image for Windows XP. So you probably recognize Windows XP if you ever used it in the past. And this is running GameMaker 6.1, which is quite a few versions back of GameMaker. And this is the first one that we used. And just this layout of this program in Windows XP is like the most nostalgic thing that I could be looking at. Because I spent a lot of time messing around in this program. My older brother John and I really were obsessed with wanting to make video games to the point that before we knew GameMaker existed, we were trying to make video games in Microsoft PowerPoint. We were, using a bunch of action buttons in PowerPoint to make games where you move your cursor through a maze, and if it ever mouses over an action button, it sends you to a slide that says game over. And, we tried to push the limits of what kind of games can you make, in PowerPoint with action buttons. And that's just how desperate we were to make games. And at one point, we happened to be at our dad's work and Googled on the computer. This is back when we didn't have internet at home. Googled something along the lines of game making software. And like many other kids at the time, we ran across the program GameMaker, which we went on to burn to a CD to bring home and put in our home computer. And basically, I think it was GameMaker 6.1 was the first one that we got. And I remember so vividly the first night that we installed it, and there's a few sample games that come along with it. And I remember we opened one, I think it was called 1945, and it was kind of this scrolling shooter, kind of World War II themed, where your shooter's going up and there's different enemies coming down that you're shooting with your point. And it's a very basic game, but you have to understand, coming from PowerPoint and what we had been making, seeing that game and like how that game played, and knowing that it was made in this program, GameMaker, that we just downloaded, absolutely blew my mind. It was like, wait a second, you mean this was made in this program we have? That means we can make games like this and make other similar games. Like, it was just like the door was open to this whole new world. And it really, ended up being one of the more defining moments in our childhood, as both John and I went on to become software engineers in the long run. And all of our first exposure to programming and learning to program was all on our own in GameMaker, just driven by this compulsion to want to make video games. And make video games we did over the next, however many years. And still to this day, we work on projects. But I am definitely going to have my work cut out for me recording a lot of these old videos. But it's going to be fun. And like I said, it's really only for me. Maybe, I'm sure John's going to enjoy seeing some of these videos. It's very nostalgic. But it may be entertaining for people that, most people haven't seen all these old projects, or even some of the ones that were, more widely released online, people won't have seen. So hopefully it's kind of fun to see. I definitely, on some of these will be playing into them longer and trying to do full playthroughs, not really with the audience in mind, but more just wanting to get as much of it documented in video as possible. So feel free to, skip ahead or whatever, or don't watch it all, because, this is just this is for me. I just want it documented. So that's enough intro. Let's jump into what I have from all the files, and I've kind of carried these files from computer to computer. Every time I've gotten a new computer, I've had this folder that I've made sure to copy over. That's all this just old GameMaker stuff and just not organized well. And I've been digging through it over the last few days. And I think this is the oldest kind of finished game that I am aware that I still have the file for. And it's called Gravity Ball. And let's fire it up here and see what we've got. So in this game, you're this black ball that falls with gravity, and if I let it fall all the way to the, block here, I'll lose one of my lives up in the window there. And I just have to keep pressing up and the arrow keys to be moving around. And the controls here are terrible. I can't hold up to go, I just fall. So I have to keep repeatedly pressing it. And the same is true with going sideways. And it messes up the gravity when you go sideways. And I remember I actually do remember working on this. And I remember I just didn't understand what I was doing in GameMaker at all. I think I must have taken some pieces from an example. And this little flag sprite and the background and stuff are all just basic GameMaker assets. And I think I just, tweaked some things and somehow got to this result. But, the problems with the controls, I had no idea how to fix them. So instead I embraced them. It was just kind of okay, this is, this is what the controls are going to be. And so it's it's not a very nice experience. I got to mash up to go up on the screen here. But at this point, when we had, been making games in PowerPoint and not really having the ability to make anything, robust or different from just simple avoid the action buttons type games, this was still just so cool. And one of the things that was so cool about it is in GameMaker, you can add levels by just adding more rooms, and you just kind of put the objects into the room. And so I love just making new levels. Now you'll think this looks a lot like the first level. Well, that's because it's going to actually switch gravity here. So I put in these invisible blocks that you didn't know were coming that are going to switch gravity. So right now I'm actually, mashing down to stay alive. Apparently, I thought that, would be a fun experience for people, is to have gravity randomly change on them where they couldn't see that was the case. Which this is going to be an ongoing theme in a lot of my old games. Is just when I look at it now, it's why did I think that was going to be fun? That just seems frustrating and annoying. But I think my brain at that point equated difficult with fun. Because a lot of games I liked at that age were really hard, and so I found a lot of satisfaction from playing hard games. But there was kind of a fundamental misunderstanding there that it's a certain type of difficulty that's fun. It's not just, random difficulty. So we'll kind of work through this here. I mean, you can kind of, I don't know where it's going to switch gravity on me. But I remember even after I had kind of made this with the different levels and I kind of wasn't making any new changes to it, I would literally come in and fire it up in GameMaker and just play this. And I would just play through it. And I think it was just this obsession with, this is this thing that I made. Oh, I'm dead. And I was just wanted to play it more and more, and just, I don't know, it was so novel at the time. But it's not very fun. It's not, I mean, it could have been worse, right? This is, some interesting concepts, but the controls are really terrible. the design of invisible changing gravity is a very questionable decision. I like how gravity doesn't really apply as much when I'm going sideways. And I think we'll see at some point here, I think gravity starts going sideways. Let's see. Gosh, I can't tell. Gravity is switching all over the place on me. Okay, we're dropping, we're going up. And I'm gonna force myself painfully to go through as much of this as I can until I get really stuck. Because this is gonna be the time capsule of what this game was. So I might as well. Okay, this must be where I add sideways, because it looks like the beginning again. Yep, so I'm going to the left now with gravity, so that's nice. Oh, and then it goes down. Oh, man. This is the point where if you're someone else watching the video, I'll probably add chapters to the YouTube video so it's easy to skip ahead to... In this particular video, I'm actually going to go through 4 different old games that I had just because it didn't feel like any of them really warranted a completely independent video. Most of the ones I do after this will probably just focus on a single game. But let's see if I can get... I don't know how many levels I added in this game. And knowing me, the final levels are probably just going to be so stupidly annoying. Because again, I think in my mind at this point, it was the harder it is, the more fun it is, or the, the better game. Oh my gosh, it's sideways here. Good thing these 13-year-old reflexes, as in from 13 years ago. Although I was about 13 years old probably at the time. So this is probably, I think this would be like 2006. Is when we would have found Game Maker. Oh my gosh. What is happening? Oh my gosh. It felt like gravity is going in more than like going diagonally or something there. I don't remember that being the case, but or maybe I just like have things changing the gravity all over the place. I don't know. This looks annoying. That's the other thing that's going to be really interesting with us, and this project of recording all my old games is this trend of me associating difficult with fun is a common trend in a lot of my old games, and I'm basically going to be forcing myself because I want to try to get it through as much of them as possible so I have the footage documented. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So that kind of forces me to play these games that are way more difficult than they need to be. But I guess that makes it a little more of a fun challenge. Like this is very hard. I don't know how close I'm getting to the last level here, but this is a noticeable step up in difficulty here. Plus it takes an hour just to go up the screen. Okay, switches. Okay, we're alive. But we gotta line this up without hitting the wall while we keep ourselves up. Oh, are we good? There we go. Good thing this game has score. I have a score of 100. And I have lives. So far, I seem to be doing pretty well with my lives. I don't know. Do I get lives after every level or something? Okay. Oh my gosh. You just don't... At the time when I would go back and play this, I had it memorized where every gravity switch was. That is not the case anymore. It is catching me by surprise. And it's probably really hard to tell on the video playback exactly which way gravity is going and which way I'm, like, mashing the keyboard. Go. But it's going all right. We're getting through these levels at a decent rate. Okay, that was predictable. Change to Oh, now we're down again. It actually, the fact that I can just like mash the keyboard kind of helps with the change of gravity, because as long as I'm pressing buttons quickly, the gravity doesn't affect me like a whole lot. Oh, this looks fun. Are there any gravity switches in here? It's probably gonna be some surprise one just to mess with me. Oh, that is a classic Ryan move. Set the gravity to look like it's throwing you right to the finish, and then at the last second, change the gravity to up to just throw you into the wall. It's just rude. Just rude. Hi. I should have looked before I actually got in here to see how many levels there were, so I had an idea of what to expect. Oh, unfortunate. The other funny thing, not so much with these really early games, but kind of the stage right after this, John and I hit a weird, kind of funny stage where we're still not very good at making games, but I think we thought we were better than we were. Like, we had kind of figured out some of the basics of Game Maker, and it was like, okay, yeah, we can do anything. And we had, oh man, I'm just really not doing well on this one. We had this idea that like we are going to sell our games. Like, people are going to buy our games and we're going to make money. Like, this is, you know, at that age you think about making money in different ways, and we were just convinced that, yeah, wow, my talking and playing well here at the same time is not working very well. But we were convinced we were going to make money off of some of these games, and I'll probably talk about that with some of it. I remember some specific ones that we like really thought we were going to make money off of. You know, like sell them to the kids at school. Okay, this is a tricky little. Oh, you gotta be killing. Just kidding me. Yeah, it's. Am I having fun? You know, it's a. Once you kind of get used to the really crappy controls, you feel like you are in control of it. You know, some level of mastery. Okay, is it gonna switch gravity on me? I don't know. Oh no! Gotta give it my full concentration here. I don't even remember what I was talking about. That's the other thing about these videos is I was like, I want some, you know, I could have just recorded them without any sound, any dialogue, and just let it be a video. But I was like, I guess it's an opportunity to provide some context or things I remember about the game. But with some of these where it's difficult and the game ends up being kind of long, I'm going to run out of things to say. It's going to be a question of where's my breaking point. I feel like I can beat this level. Feels doable. I am shocked that I'm able to play this. Like, that I kept it all this time. And then I was able to get Windows XP running in parallels with an old version of Game Maker 6. Like, some of these, there's games that I've been able to fire up in the past few days when I've been experimenting that I thought I would never see again. So that's cool. It was definitely something I wanted to do with this, is get as much of it as I could find the files for. This level seems easier than, oh, I have to, oh, I speak too soon. You can probably hear me just like mashing my keys in the microphone. Oh, I only have 8 lives left. I really ate through my supply in that level a couple ago. Am I lined up? I forgot how many levels there were. Oh, that goes sideways. I forgot how many levels there were this. when I went into this and was like, oh, I'll lump the first 4 games together, I definitely was not thinking through how long I was going to spend on just this one, but I'm not in a hurry. Okay, this is annoying. I'd like to think, you know, when I played video games in general, I tended to be pretty good at difficult video games. You know, I always liked like Mario and games that were just kind of pure difficulty and didn't, you know, mess around with story and these things. And I think part of the reason I got pretty good at those games is because I would spend half the time testing my own games. It only takes a little bit of testing these stinking games to just improve your twitch skills, reflexes. This still feels doable though. If I hit a point where I'm just like, okay, this is stupid, I'll probably quit. But until then, I'm giving it my best go. Okay, this is just annoying. Like, why do I do this? You have to like hug up perfectly against the wall and like hope you don't go too far. Oh, that was so close. I only have 4 lives left, so if I end up dying, that's it. That's all she wrote. Okay, gravity switched on me. Oh, I was expecting gravity to switch there and it didn't. That's what I get. I'm not sure anyone else actually played this game besides me. Like, it never was released online or anything. Oh, that is such a Ryan move. It looks like it's just going to pull you all the way left, and I just throw in something that switches it to up. I'm almost on my last life here, aren't I? This is clutch time. This is where you lean into all your years of experience to not let the 13-year-old version of you... Oh, too bad. Do you want to play again? I bet it goes all the way back to the first level. Ooh, a nice built-in high scoreboard. Yep, back to the... So that's that. That's Gravity Ball. Hopefully that was enjoyable, but let's go on to the next one. And actually, before I go, I'll have you know that I was actually on level 29 out of 30, so I would have just needed to get to this level to beat it. I'm not going to try this one, but I was pretty close to getting through it all. So this would have been the final level, and that is all of Gravity Ball. Oh, check out that intro. So this is clearly once John and I decided to go under the pseudonym Legendary, which became kind of our name for our game studio. I am not sure how well this audio is going to come through just the microphone here. But this is Basketball, which I remember being one of the earliest games, and I think this is it must have been after we made the decision. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true. I was going to say the decision to get the pro version of GameMaker. I think it was. It was like a $20 fee that gave you access to a bunch of functions and stuff that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And this literally, like, I like how the F1 here. So this is a legendary production and all these things. When we literally just took a tutorial that it was like this example of kind of this 3D effect of moving towards these trees that get bigger as you move towards them. We just changed your person to a basketball player and the trees to basketball players. And just called it Basketball the Speed Dribbler. I think the only other addition here is the background changes color. So, just totally rip the tutorial and call it our own game. Let's give this a go. Oh, and this combination of this with the music is just... I remember these days. I remember bringing this on like a flash drive to school and having kids in my class play it. And I thought it was so cool. Check out that hot dribbling sprite. I just have to avoid things, and I think every 500 points I Like, the background changes. That's, like, the only satisfying thing about this game is, like, what's the next background gonna be? And I think this definitely was still in that phase of, like, I did not know what I was doing in GameMaker. So everything at that point was just taking, like, the little tutorials and everything and just making little tweaks to it and trying things. But they ended up staying pretty close to the tutorial because I just didn't understand how to do anything more than that. And clearly this, you know, gets harder as it goes. There's more of these defenders. And I think I programmed a lot of backgrounds into this. Like, I think you have to get really far before you exhaust all of the different I think it starts going to gradients and things like that. There's also an example of a game that, like, the difficulty, the amount of time it takes to get to a difficulty where it's actually, like, a fun challenge is a really long time. So if you die, it's not like you want to play again. It's like, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get to the, you know, the part where it's actually going to be fun. Oh, my eyeballs. But yeah, when you got hot jams like this, keeps you in the zone. And when I say hot jams, I mean I'm almost positive this was one of the audio files that came by default with GameMaker. It is funny always running across other people's really old games that ran across GameMaker at this time, and everybody's games have, like, the same soundtrack because those were the default ones. Ooh, Gradient. We've made it to Gradient Land. This is a thrill. I'd like to take this moment to appreciate the well-drawn Nike swooshes with 4 pixels on this guy's shoes. It is funny that at the time that I would have made this, I really thought of it as, like, this game that I made, which is just kind of a funny thing given that basically all the programming of it I stole from that tutorial. Like, I just, like, changed images and stuff. But yet I still felt like a strong sense of ownership. Okay, it's getting a little harder here. Oh, yeah. Look at that gradient. Oh, dang it. I hit as far as I could go left. I was unable to go left anymore, which is not a good place to be. So there are limits to how far I can go in each direction. Okay, that's nice. Pink. I don't know how big these oh, there you go. And that's it. I don't think that's worth another play. I think we got the gist of it. That's basketball, the speed dribbler. Another one of the earliest legendary productions. Oh dear. Okay. If you have aversion to flashing lights, you probably want to skip this game. So, I don't know what I was thinking when I made this. Let's see, we can press F1 for help. A legendary production, Colorweb. If you've ever had a seizure, don't play this game. I think a lot of times that I got in GameMaker, I would just mess around with funny visual effects, and then sometimes I'd be like, that's kind of cool. I wonder what kind of game could go with it. And I think this is an example of that. So if I click to start here, you'll notice I, like, move around this, like, Colorweb thing. But you'll notice that there's, like, black shapes that appear, like those are triangles, and up here's a circle. Literally the point of the game is I'm trying to find the circles and click them, but never accidentally click on a triangle. And so I'm trying to, like, use my lines here to identify the silhouettes. You'll also notice that the longer I play here, it gets, like, more psychedelic with more lines as I move around. And it's funny because in the instructions, it actually says that, like, every time you get one, it'll add a set of lines, you know, so you can see things easier. That was definitely not a planned feature. That was definitely, I don't know why this does this. It just, like, was some bug, and so I just decided to say it was a feature, which is a good way to do things. But yeah, it gets kind of psychedelic here. Because I'm sure every time I was clicking this, it was, like, somehow creating another instance of the Colorweb thing, and I think the game starts lagging a little bit if you get too far here. But yeah, it's definitely a game that originated from the visual effect Because it's not fun. Like, it's not like I sat down and like, you know what would be a fun game? Where you have to like find these hidden black shapes by waving around a really psychedelic set of lines. But, you know, I obviously thought it was cool enough to stamp the legendary production stamp on it, which in the really early days was just legendary, I think. And I think at some point we adopted it to be, or adapted to Legendary Creations. I'm so good at this game. I'm probably going to get to the point where it resets. Like, I think when it gets to like 80 or something, it resets. I don't know what causes that. I don't know. It's just, it's a funny thing. It's like, why? Why did I make this? And I'm sure I didn't spend very much time on it. I wasn't much into it polishing games at this point. It was like, if the basics of it worked, I just pushed it out there. I think if you click on a triangle, you actually lose immediately. I'm just too cool for that. Or if you don't click a circle for long enough. This music, I'm sure, is another GameMaker standard example, but I feel like it's very fitting for this game. It's kind of frantic. And look at these visual effects. I'm curious if I'm going to hit the point where it resets, because I think it goes back at some point. Which, again, I think was a complete bug, but I thought of it as like, oh, it's like the difficulty's ramping up because you're back to only having like your one web instead of all of these. But obviously to make this, I was starting to understand some things about GameMaker, because I must have figured out how to like draw a line from a point to the cursor's location, because that's how the web is working. But then I also am spawning these shapes like after a certain amount of time and at random positions on the screen. And those are definitely things that I didn't know how to do at the time of, you know, basketball and gravity ball. So there's a little bit of a progression here in my understanding of things. I don't know if I'm chasing after an unachievable goal here in expecting this to reset. But I seem to remember that was what happened. I still just wonder though, like what led to this? Like, what did I start doing in GameMaker that led to this? It must have just been like drawing lines to the cursor. Or I don't know why I would have wanted to try to figure that out, but I mean, it's kind of original. I'll give middle school me that. I've never seen a game like this before. So it scores decently high on originality. It scores pretty low on fun factor. I like the score just ticking up every single, like 30 points a second. Everybody likes getting really high scores, like 60,000. Oh, there it is. We made it. So clearly it's a little harder now because I'm back to having and it's going to start building up here again. But well, that's probably enough for me. I'm going to click a triangle the next time I see one. That's the way I want to lose. I want to go out on a triangle under my own doing. Oh, there we go. Look at that. My little test ones from when I was just seeing if this game worked. Blew it out of the water. The best. That is Colorweb. Not coming to a device of yours anytime soon or ever. And the last game we've got here is Disease. And this is actually a similar concept, or has a similar origin story to Colorweb, in that I think it started as just kind of a fun visual effect, like making these little, you know, things that go around and drop all of these colored squares and move around randomly. And it was like, oh, that looks cool, and I can put multiple ones on the screen, and that looks cool. And then thinking, well, how could I make a game around it? And so the game is that you control this tiny square, and you can only collect squares that are currently your color, and those give you points. And then there's a bunch of special squares. Like there's these little ones that kind of look like your character that when you get them, it like makes a clone so that you have multiple characters moving around. You have these X's you don't want to get because they reduce your time. Then there's these like bomb ones. I'm trying to find one. That like explode. These ones that kind of have like a fire gradient. Now this is very small. If you can't that definitely is the funny thing when I look back on this game. It's just like, why did I make it so tiny? I guess it's because it started out as being the visual effect, and then I just made the game around it. But let's give it a go. So let's start around. I'm green right now, so I want to... Oh, but you change color randomly, so now I'm purple. So I want to collect up... I got an X, which makes me lose time. And you're just trying to collect things for points. I don't know what these like dot ones do. Let me get this exploding one. Yeah, so that explodes and like that'll get all of the ones near it. These kind of like brownish ones that I'm hitting that kind of start randomly moving around, and they'll collect things for you. You'll see I have a couple characters now instead of just my one. But it's another example. I remember playing this. I actually remember like thinking it was kind of cool and fun. But it is so hard to see what's going on and like what you're trying to do, and your color ends up switching fairly frequently, so you have to like keep switching what you think you're going for. So in the end, it's not really very fun, but that clearly was not top of mind for me at this point. I was just making fun little experiments, which there's part of me that misses that spirit of just kind of reckless invention and not caring. Like I didn't care about anything really. It was just like make something. I don't care if it's good or... And I mean, I probably thought it was good. The best part in this game is when you get the little exploding ones and they like chain into other exploding ones. So it's kind of satisfying. There's also some kind of weird thing where occasionally a bunch of the squares like suddenly change color, which is another classic bug I don't know how to fix that just became a feature. I also lose track of which one was my starting character. But the clone ones, after a while, they go away. They only are there for a certain amount of time. So I'll accidentally be looking at one of those and then suddenly it like disappears, and then you just like pick a different one to look at. See, I have still like 200. There's a way to get time back. Oh, that's probably what the little white ones with the dot do. They probably give you time. Just like how the X's take away time. Yeah, I think that's right. More classic Game Maker jams. Keep me going. It's hard to say what changes would need to be made to this formula for it to be good, like even remotely playable and fun. Once again, I'll give myself points for originality. It's an interesting concept. But it's not that fun. We got like 60 seconds left. It looks cool as the things kind of expand and drop all of them around. Oh, I'm about to... Time's up. Oh, and then they all like kind of disappear. Oh, that's kind of a cool effect. I approve of that, them disappearing in order by color. There you go, 6,650. And that is the final one I'm going over in this video. Disease. maybe you found that kind of fun to see these really old games. I mean, this is like, those are 4 of the oldest ones that I think I have files for. I definitely enjoyed kind of going through and looking at these again. If you find yourself interested in seeing more of kind of the path of games that my brother and I made over the years, you can feel free to subscribe to the channel because I'm going to plan on posting more of them into this playlist. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad I'm going to have these little time capsules to be able to look back on and remember the games of my youth. So, thanks for watching if you made it this far, and I am signing off for now. Bye.